Welcome to Greater Good Radio Hawaii, where leaders inspire leaders. Greater Good Radio Hawaii is dedicated to social entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Evan Leong, and with me is my co-host, Carrie Leong.
Thank you, Evan. Today's guest is Joe Rice, President and CEO of Mid-Pacific Institute, a college preparatory school. He has received the Golden Apple Award for Education Excellence, Excellence in Education Administration Award, and the National Golden Acorn Award in 1990s. Please welcome to Greater Good Radio, Joe Rice. Welcome to our show, Joe.
Hi.
So how did you get into the education field? You've been in there for about 35 years, right?
Yeah, 35 years now. Seems like a long time. Should retire. I just fell into it, really. I was going to be a social worker, and came down to my senior year, and I was applying to the School of Social Work, and found out that my foreign language wasn't good enough to get in. And all of a sudden I started thinking about what could I do. And the counselors asked me about why did I want to go into social work. And I said, I want to give back. I have to do something to kind of give back for all the people who helped me in life. And social work was a good avenue. And they said, well, there's a whole bunch of other things you could consider. And one of them was education. Which was my first thought, senior year of college, education.
So if we go a little bit farther back from that, can we talk a little bit about maybe some of the background things that made you want to go into social work or education? Mm-hmm. Why would you want to go into something like that?
Looking back on life, I think that a lot of people would say my life growing up was a little different than many children. I'm the oldest of 12, migrant family. We basically worked crops from the time I was about 3 years old till started my sophomore year in high school. And we basically went from lower part of California up to Canada, doing field crops, living in tents, just going from job to job to job for many years. I think it was probably out of all those years, about 2 of them that we actually had a house that we rented and lived in. Then something would happen and we'd have to move, often in the dead of night. And so we, because of our
life, just pick up your household and leave.
We had a Ford station wagon, and we basically put our belongings on the lower floor, took out the seats in the back, and loaded up with our stuff, blankets on the top, and then the kids would just kind of lie on the top. And we just go from season to season, farm to farm, working crops. My stepfather wasn't always the best of fathers, drank a lot. Later in my life, my mom also drank a lot. There was a lot of, poverty and sorrow in your life. It leads a lot of people to do things that maybe other families wouldn't do. So we ended up with a lot of abuse in our family, a lot of times of going hungry, no jobs, looking for a place to stay or food to eat. And it seemed that there were always groups that would step forward to help us when things were the most desolate. Salvation Army helped us a lot. It was the first church I ever went to, partly because I felt good about their mission. Social services, welfare, all of those folks helped us a lot. After really rough times, I think I was in foster care about 4 times, including my brothers and sisters. We'd be taken away and put in different homes and things, but cared for, then returned back to our home, which was a car, and we'd get up and go again. A couple times we were collected from our foster families by our dad and mom, called outside, and not sure how they found out where we were, and we'd pack up in the car and off we'd go. But we had plenty of help from lots of people, and it just stuck in my mind that if I ever had an opportunity, I was going to give back.
Can you share a story of maybe somebody that had helped you and maybe it was a turning point for you?
There's so many, as I look back on it, and this is growing up through high school, there's so many things that happened. it's hard to pick just one. I know there was a time when, because I worked in the fields, actually went to school in a camp tent that was set up by the Department of Education in the farm, and you would go there and meet people. I remember that when I was very young, too young to start school, they would still let me go in there and sit with the younger group. And so I actually learned to read and do some of the academic things earlier than a lot of kids did. But the teacher would let me because she knew that back at my little cabin or whatever we were staying at, sometimes a tent, good chance the parents weren't there and I was just alone. So I was a 3 or 4 year old, so they just let me sit in on the classes. That was meaningful to me. I remember in high school taking French as my foreign language and starting later than most people do, since I hardly ever went to school, that my French wasn't that good. I practiced the dialogues in my head, but nobody else to speak with. I'd go to class and everyone would get up and do their Bonjour Jean, comment vas-tu speeches, and I couldn't do it. And the teacher actually was from Spain, but she spoke fluent Spanish, Japanese, and was from the Japanese, Spanish and French, and was from the area between Spain and France, and knew about being kind of torn between cultures and a poor life and stuff. So she had a lot of sympathy and empathy for me. So she never asked me to get up and give my dialogues. She would always say, "That's okay, Joe. I know that you didn't have time to practice and things." And I got a decent grade, like a C. Even though you love them, how can you give them an A or B when they can't do the dialogue? But what happened was, later in college, I took a couple more years of French, and I again worked every year of college, full-time job, and went to school. So I very seldom did all of the work and assignments, but I had a very good memory, and so I do okay on the tests. But when it came time to take the French exams, I couldn't do it. And partly because of the leniency, if you want to call it, or compassion that people showed me on the way, not allowing me to get up and embarrass myself in front of others. But because of that decision, I couldn't get into school social work. But because of that decision, I was directed towards consideration of education, and it became the love and passion of my life. So all because of somebody's compassion and help for me, which could have been looked at negatively or positively, it made a decision. And I have plenty of those. I have folks in my life that have come forward and taken me away when my father was after me for beatings and things, and they'd hide me. How do you ever pay them back when they were risking themselves against my dad because they'd be friends of his? All kinds of examples of that, but any one, I would say it's been a lifetime of people stepping forward for me and my brothers and sisters.
Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for more on Greater Good Radio.